Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Hello. The mayor says there's no wind under the tent, so this is a Jefferson special right here. Grab your seats. And happy 25th, by the way. Happy 25th to everybody here. On behalf of the Morris County Board of Freeholders, Doug Cabana, Heather Darling, Kathy DiFilippo, John Crickus, Tom Mastrangelo, Steve Shaw, and Deb Smith, I want to welcome everyone here this morning. It's a great autumn day celebrating the 25th anniversary of the county's Open Space Preservation Trust. When we met in the summer with Debbie Milliken and Ed Hack, Christine Marion, Barbara Murray, we wondered what kind of day this would be, because October 18th, you could be 80 degrees, it can be 20 degrees, and we were hoping. We dodged the bullet on Wednesday because we did have a nor'easter of sorts. So, and a special thanks to Debbie and Ed and Barbara and Christine for making this event happen. Thank you, guys. Just a personal note for me. I had the pleasure in a long career as a news reporter to cover the creation of the trust fund, actually, and reported on many of the projects, so it's kind of special to me as well. I can't tell you how many times that I pestered poor Frank Pinto and his staff for information, phone calls on places like Jonathan's Woods and Kohler Pond or Wildcat Ridge, so we could let people know of our county, the great job that you're all doing. Now it's 25 years later. My hair has turned white, and I did see it in the mirror this morning. And I have grandkids. But the great thing is, these grandkids will reap the benefit of what you have all done to make this county a better place over the past quarter century. So congratulations to all of you for the work you've done. Now, with the wind here, and my finger's not working, before we go any further, we need to take a minute to honor our flag to start these proceedings. And I would ask, is Ed here? Ed Hack, where's Ed? Ed, come on over here. And Debbie Milliken, come on up here, please. And Barbara Murray? Come on over here. Up here. And join us, the four of us, in the Pledge of Allegiance. Lead us, guys. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. There are some people I would like to introduce this morning, and just to say hi, County Administrator John Benani, who's with us. Mayor Will Susan, of course, thank you so much for having us up here today. I saw Marty Kane from the Lake Hopatcong Foundation, and also Debbie from the foundation. Is Lisa Stern here from Green Acres? Am I missing Lisa? Okay, I don't see her right now. And former Administrator Jim Leach. Jim, there you are. Thank you. And there goes the first page. The mayor didn't keep us all from the wind. Thank you so much. This morning, I'd first like to introduce Freeholder Steve Shaw. Steve is a lifelong resident of our state and has lived in Morris County for more than 5 decades. He is currently liaison to the Office of Planning and Preservation. Steve has been a mayor and councilman in Mountain Lakes, was the Mountain Lakes Police Citizen of the Year in 2012. Importantly for this event, Steve has a history with open space preservation in Morris County, serving as a member and vice chair of the Morris County Open Space Trust Fund Committee. He assisted in preservation of the Giralda Farms Preserve at Lewanika Brook Reservation in Chatham Township, where we'll be this afternoon, for a project that received a $10 million Morris County Open Space Grant, the largest single open space grant ever awarded. So please, help me give a hand to Freeholder Steve Shaw.
Thank you, Larry. As you were going over that list of accomplishments, what really strikes me, and anybody that's in this business of public service, they know those accomplishments aren't done alone. It's done with a lot of help and support, whether it's staff or volunteers. And I'm always amazed, actually, how our county and our municipalities, they really run on volunteers. I want to welcome you and thank you for joining us here at Prospect Park in Jefferson Township. I want to acknowledge our freeholder, my colleagues that are here. Several of Morris County legislative breakfast for mental health. So they're going to be joining us later this afternoon at another event. I, too, want to give a special thanks to Mayor Eric Wilsusen for hosting our celebration. And I want to thank the staff and everyone here in Jefferson for their efforts to make all of this happen. Larry, you actually stole some of my lines, but that's okay. And I want to also welcome all the mayors, local officials, former freeholders, the Lake Apacon Commission and Foundation members, and many, many others that have supported the work of preserving open space in Morris County. The efforts of the over 143 dedicated volunteers who now serve and have previously served on the county's Open Space Trust Fund Committee must also be recognized. Those are the volunteers I was talking about before. Everybody should be proud of the role they've played in helping Morris County preserve our green spaces over the past 2.5 decades, 25 years. You've done a remarkable job. And anytime I'm at one of these recognitions and you're talking about years, 25 years, I would like to put it in the context of ask you all just to think about what you were doing 25 years ago, how old you were, how much hair you had. But a couple interesting things. Gas was running at about a dollar a gallon 25 years ago. You logged onto the internet, dialing up, and you used Netscape Navigator, and you didn't have the smartphone, and you didn't have Facebook and Instagram, and actually maybe that was a good thing. But that really, to me, helps me put it in context when you talk about, it's easy just to say 25 years, but think about how long and what a legacy that is, and it will continue. As Larry said, I had the pleasure of serving on open space a few years back. And what struck me, once again, it goes to the volunteers and the staff, the professional staff we have in the county that would help put everything together for the committee, which is all volunteers. And as Larry said, Lisa Stern, I guess you didn't make it, but we couldn't do this without our partner at the state, Green Acre Program. They've been instrumental as a funding partner in our preservation efforts, helping the county reaching our preservation goals. Green Acres was actually key in the acquisition of the Hunter's Glen property right here in Jefferson Township, among many, many others. So I definitely want to make sure we extend a thank you to the Green Acres program. This morning, we're actually just sitting a few feet from the Jim Leach Trail, which is right behind me over here. It's just a short walk to Liffy Island, the first Morris County Open Space Trust Fund grant approved, like I said, back in 1994. Since then, the county and its municipal nonprofit partners have awarded open space grants for projects in 38 of the 39 municipalities in Morris County, preserving over 17,000 acres of green space, helping to make Morris County, as I always love to say, a great place to live, work, play, and raise a family. Once again, it's also hard to put that kind of acreage into perspective. So somebody did a little calculation for me here. That amount of land preserved for open space in the county trust fund is more acreage than the size of Parsippany and almost as large as Chester Township. So it's an incredible amount of land that we have preserved here in Morris County. I really couldn't think of a better place to kick off our celebration of 25 years of preservation than right here in Jefferson. As you all know, this is where the first grant application took place, and Jefferson continues to be the mainstay of our Open Space Trust Fund program, with, over the years, many projects receiving 29 county grants totaling $12.6 million to preserve over 1,100 acres, and that is truly an ongoing legacy. You're to be congratulated once again, Mayor Wilsusen, former Mayor Russ Felter, and longtime Administrator Jim Leach, and the whole team here in Jefferson Township that made the acquisition of Liffy Island a reality, and all the other preservation programs that have taken place in Jefferson Township. So finally, I just want to congratulate all you. I want to thank all you, and it's my pleasure now to call on our freeholder director, just demoted him, Director Cabana.
All right, good morning, everybody, and it's great to be here to celebrate the 25th anniversary of our Open Space Fund. You know, I was just reflecting back that 25 years ago, I was the mayor of Boonton Township, and we were one of the towns that at the time had, 60% open space within our 8 square miles, and most of that is still there, in part because of the funding that was available from Green Acres and from the county. But I'd like to thank you all for coming out here this morning to recognize this important milestone as we mark the 25th anniversary of the Morris County Open Space Preservation Fund. More than 27 years ago, the county's Board of Freeholders asked our residents via a referendum if they would establish a trust fund for the preservation of open space and farmland. Federal and state funds for land preservation were dwindling, and development pressures were mounting. Our freeholders, guided by the efforts of the not-for-profit Morris 2000 Planning Group, recognize that sound community planning requires a balance of economic growth and the protection of natural resources here in Morris County. That Freeholder Board, consisting of the late Tony Bucco, Pete O'Hagan, Pat Highland, Sissy Lories, and Frank Drutzler and Ed Tam, listened to the advice that was made and made their case to the voters of Morris County. The voters responded with a resounding yes. As a result, with a bipartisan mandate, the freeholders on December 22nd, 1992, established the Morris County Open Space and Preservation Trust Fund. The original trust fund provided grant funding to municipalities, nonprofits, the Park Commission, the MUA, farmers, and landowners for permanent preservation of open space and farmland. The county's park director at the time was Quentin Schiller. Said it best, "This is an investment in the quality of life here in Morris County. It speaks well of our residents that they would sacrifice in dollars now for the betterment of Morris County's future." In November 1994, 25 years ago, Open Space Committee Chair Dr. Joe Weisberg came to the freeholders with the first 3 recommendation open space grants: Liffy Island here in Jefferson Township, Turkey Brook Park in Mount Olive, and Knuth Farm in Denville. Chairman Weisberg told the freeholders, "Many of these projects are extremely sensitive areas that deserve to be saved, need to be saved, and let's hope this is a first step in their preservation." By a unanimous vote, the Freeholder Board, also now including Joan Bramhall, John Eckert, and Jim O'Brien, approved these first 3 projects. After the years passed, the trust fund's scope was extended to include the preservation of historic sites, flood mitigation, and recreational trail construction. Here are some of the numbers by facts. Since the inception of the county's Open Space Fund, 474 grants have been awarded for projects in 38 municipalities. 403 projects have been completed. Total preserved acreage is 17,475 acres and counting. Successful projects have been awarded $289.7 million in grants. The largest project was Fire Tower Ridge in Mount Olive at 613 acres. The smallest dollar award was the 2.5-acre Butler Raceway project at $11,000. And the single largest grant was $10 million for the Giralda Farms property in Chatham Township. County residents who have supported open space preservation, even during tough economic times, have benefited in a variety of ways. Critical natural resources, which are vital to our public health and quality of life, have been protected. We now possess in perpetuity some of the most beautiful, diverse, and highly accessible parks and outdoor recreational facilities in the state. We have supported our state's heritage and agriculture. It remains a deeply rooted part of our economy, which provides healthy, locally grown foods, much-needed jobs, and tax revenues generated from farm markets and tourism. We have been able to preserve many precious historic sites and buildings in our county, some dating back to the Revolutionary War. Maybe the least known benefit of the program has been the cost savings to municipalities by lowering the need for expansive public services. Residential and commercial developments require increased police and fire services, larger schools, and other costly infrastructure expansions. Farms, parks, and historic sites do not. Going forward, the essential work of the Preservation Trust Fund continues. The Board of Freeholders expects the next round of open space preservation recommendations early in November. As we move deeper into the 21st century, it is very important to complete what we have begun here at places like Liffy Island. We need to effectively steward the natural resources in which we have invested, to connect our trails, to complete our greenways, and to ensure that Morris County remains the best place to live and work and to go to school and raise your family here in New Jersey. To all of you here today, thank you for being part of this great effort. On behalf of the entire Freeholder Board, I thank you very much for everything. Thanks.
Take two. All right, I'll keep it briefer. But I won't keep it that brief that I won't introduce Eric Wilsusan. Ladies and gentlemen, Eric Wilsusan is the mayor of Jefferson, our host community for this celebration. Eric is a 55-year resident of Jefferson. 55 years, huh? Who grew up in Lake Shawnee. He is a retired deputy police chief in Jefferson, served on the force for more than 30 years. He currently works for the Catholic Diocese of Paterson as Director of Child and Youth Protection. Eric has been actively involved in all aspects of the Jefferson community for many decades and was named the Mayor's Citizen of the Year in 2014. He took the oath of office on January 2nd of this year as the township's new mayor, and please welcome Eric Wilsusan.
Well, welcome everybody to beautiful Jefferson Township. Was able to make the rain go away, but unfortunately I could not do anything with the wind, so I apologize for that. But welcome everybody, and I want to say congratulations to the Morris County Open Space Trust Fund, 25 years. It's wonderful. Also want to welcome and thank all of our freeholders and county officials for being here today. I do need to introduce some of our township officials and some of our employees that are here today. We have our township administrator, Deb Milliken, our administrative assistant, Joanne Myers. We have our CFO, Bill Egan here, our recycling coordinator and engineering assistant, Patty Romano. We have Grace Rhinesmith, who is our recreation director. We have from our engineering department, we have one of the people who was next to probably Jim Leach, was instrumental in putting a lot of this together, and that's our township engineer, Ed Hack, as well as our engineering assistant, Larry Poggi. From our public works department, one of our assistant public works supervisors, Troy Hackett, is here today. From our clerk's office, we have Michelle Riley, and we have most of our council here, Councilman Jay Dunham, Councilwoman Melissa Senator, Councilman Bob Birmingham. I know Council President Deb Mers is working today, and as well as Council Vice President Kim Finnegan is also working today. And we even have our IT director, Dave. Where's Dave? There he is, Dave in the back there, yeah. So I want to thank everybody for being here, and quite honestly, I'm the new mayor, took office in January. I am not going to take any credit for this in any way, shape, or form. This was the brainchild of Jim Leach and Russ Felter, the previous administration, who had worked on this project for many, many, many years. This was a valuable piece of property. I encourage everybody after the ceremonies are over to please absolutely take a walk on this trail. It's a the scenery is just absolutely breathtaking. My wife and I utilize this trail quite a bit. We walk our dog here as many weekends as we possibly can. I held my first hike with the mayor here on this trail last Saturday. Didn't get quite the turnout, but we'll do it again and get some more people. We also have a private organization that's going to be running a 5K trail run here on November 10th. It's called a Pizza Run. And so we hope that this property really benefits our community, county residents, and anybody that wants to utilize it. It is truly a beautiful piece. Jim Leach had the vision to preserve this property many years ago. If you look at the shoreline and if you have a boat on Lake Apacon, it is one of the last untouched pieces of property on Lake Apacon that's undeveloped, and they really had the foresight to make sure it stayed preserved, because a lot of homes could have been built here, and certainly would have taken away from the beauty of the community. So I definitely encourage you guys to take a walk up there, take a look. The boardwalk trail is phenomenal. Again, Ed Hack, our township engineer, did wonderful work on that. We didn't think it would ever get done, but it did, and I credit Ed and our Public Works Department, our Public Works employees, our Recreation employees. Just did such a fantastic job. They take pride in this area. I plan to carry the torch that Jim and Russ started to make sure that this stays preserved and looks as well as it does today. Unfortunately, as you see the sign there, no ATVs. We do have a problem with ATVs tearing up things up a little bit. We're trying to curtail that a little bit, but it is a definite beauty for Jefferson, a treasure for Jefferson, and I just want to thank everybody involved. We do have a little more work to do on it. We have some trails to blaze out on Liffy Island and as well out to Prospect Point Road, again, to make it more usable for all of our residents. So thank you for being here. Thank you to Jim Leach and to Russ Felter for their vision to preserve this property, and again, please take a walk. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks very much. Next, I'd like to introduce a man who knows a little bit about open space in Morris County, Jay Thompson. Jay is an original member, founding member of the county's Open Space Preservation Trust Fund, and 25 years later, he's the chairman still. So, Jay, I don't know what caused you to want all this punishment, but you're here 25 years doing this. He has volunteered his time and expertise, historical knowledge of the open space process, helping make it a great success. When I spoke to Jay recently, he told me stories of some historical figures in Morris County, Willard Hedden and Henry Sperling, and their influence in getting him interested and involved in public service and preservation. Jay has served a record of 13 years on the Open Space Committee, a record of 7 years as its chair. That's dedication, Jay. Thank you. Please welcome Jay Thompson.
Thank you, Larry. First of all, I want to say it's true. I was 12 years old when I first served on the committee. Actually, there's a few committee members here today on the current committee. I'd like them to just stand and be recognized. I don't want to miss anybody, so if our current committee members could just stand and be recognized. Wow, 25 years, but I'd like to take you back for a moment to the decade of the 1980s. Ronald Reagan and George Bush 41 were the presidents. The economy was roaring. The BMW was the status car to own. Dinks, double income, no kids, and yuppies, young urban professionals were a thing. The McMansion was born. Developers could not build big enough or fast enough. Gordon Gekko in the movie Wall Street famously said, "Greed is good." There was a group of forward thinkers who were concerned about the quality of life in Morris County called Morris 2000. They were looking ahead at the coming millennial and tried to address things like employment, education, traffic, housing, and overall quality of life. They looked to the counties to the east and didn't want to believe that that's what we had to look forward to. Don Palmer from Long Valley was the one who brought the idea of open space preservation to Morris 2000. And when I think about how that conversation must have went when the idea was presented to the freeholders, it must have sounded like this. We want to propose a new special dedicated tax whose purpose is to preserve land. We want to prevent development, which means less ratables, which means less property taxes. And there should be a special referendum for the voters to approve. Are you nuts? And the politicians went for it. The freeholders at the time were Tony Bucco Sr., Frank Drutzler, Pete O'Hagan, Pat Hyland, Sissy Lories, John Murphy, and Ed Tam. Not only did the voters go for it, but they went for it overwhelmingly 2-1. They subsequently went for it several more times to increase it and passed it by the same margins. The interesting thing is that all 39 towns had the same 2-1 result. Even the voters in urban towns that had very little open space available realized the value of what the county was trying to do. Once approved, the freeholders had to decide how it was going to be managed. I think Don Palmer and Walter Critch had a lot of breakfast meetings at the Chester Diner. It was agreed that the committee was to have a wide representation with 15 members on a rotating basis. The 39 municipalities would be divided into 8 regions. County boards would each get a seat. The MUA, the Park Commission, Agricultural Development Board, the County Planning Board, Historic Preservation, and 2 at-large members. To date, there have been 143 members serve on the committee. And what a first committee that was assembled. Just to name a few: Oscar Kincaid, Joe Mariziti Jr., Frank Markowitz, Katie Porter, Earl Spino, and our chair, Dr. Joe Weisberg. And of course, the staff at the county consisted of Walter Critch, Frank Pinto, and Tom Kenny. Boy, did I learn a lot. After all, I was only 12. Probably the most important work of the committee, besides wading through the applications, which, by the way, we had to develop, was the site visits. That first year, there were 19 projects. Perhaps one of the most memorable ones was right here at Liffy Island. I'd like to tell you a tale of a fateful trip that started out of a Lakeland port aboard a tiny ship supplied by the New Jersey State Police. If you thought Gilligan's Island ran into a storm, you should have been here 25 years ago when the committee tried to visit Liffy Island. Needless to say, we told Jefferson that their funding would be reduced if they lost any committee members. Not to worry, everybody made it back safe and sound, but a lot wetter. That first year, we funded 3 projects: Knuth Farm in Denville, Turkey Brook Park in Mount Olive, and Liffy Island here in Jefferson. Demand for dollars was great and funding was limited. It should be noted that the 16 projects that did not get funding that first round, almost all of them came back and were funded in subsequent rounds. I want to emphasize the development pressure at the time. Remember those dinks and yuppies? Well, when they replaced their lifestyle with baby on board stickers, remember these? They wanted McMansions and yards for their families. We would sometimes go on site visits and the developers' bulldozers would be clearing the land. How the towns convinced them not to build was a miracle. One example of this was Dickerson Mine Preserve project in Mine Hill. Had that one development been built, it would have doubled the population of the town, and it would have changed them and the surrounding towns forever. Some of the other projects that we now take for granted are active recreation complexes such as the Aerodrome in Boonton, Freedom Park in Randolph, Turkey Brook in Mount Olive. Fun fact, did you know Turkey Brook Park, Mount Olive could not participate in Little League because they had high tension wires running over their outfields? Little League prohibited encumbrances on sanctioned fields. Turkey Brook enabled them to be able to participate in Little League. People who move here now think those complexes were always there. The towns have done an outstanding job of developing them into what they are today. But not all projects were for active recreation. There are some fine examples of passive recreation as well. Rock Pear in Kinnelon, AT&T Telcordia in Chester, Veterans Park in Roxbury, and Dickerson Mine Preserve in Mine Hill that I mentioned earlier. Not all projects were large in scope. Towns like Dover, Morristown, and Wharton have all had success in the program with much smaller pocket parks. Preservation has been so successful that many municipalities created their own open space trust funds to pay off their share of acquisition debt. It has been a combined effort between municipalities, County Open Space Trust Fund, New Jersey Green Acres, and nonprofits. Collectively, we have done great things. Ed Tam, who was one of those original freeholders and was mayor of my hometown in Randolph, coined the phrase, Randolph, where life is worth living. He could have easily changed that to Morris County, where life is worth living. Those 7 freeholders who had the courage to embrace open space preservation at a time when it was not politically safe were giants. And today we stand on their shoulders. It has been an exciting time in Morris County history, and it has been a pleasure to serve. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you so much for all you've done. Young lady sitting up front, her name is Betty Cash-Schmidt. And Betty is a longtime member of the County Park Commission and former commission president. She's the current chair of the Morris County Trail Construction Grant Program and a member of the Morris County Flood Mitigation Committee. All of these assignments have a close connection to the Open Space Preservation Trust Fund. And in her spare time, by the way, Betty also has been a mayor and councilwoman in Pequannock, treasurer of the Bonnie Bray School in Liberty Corner, past president of New Bridge Services, volunteer Morris Habitat for Humanity, and others and others and others. She's dedicated. Please welcome Betty Cash-Schmidt.
Good morning, and Mayor, thank you for the beautiful weather, fall weather that you've arranged today, and hosting the 25th anniversary celebration for the Morris County Open Space Trust Fund. I want to also thank the Freeholder Board, both past and present, for the continued support of the Morris County Open Space Program and their collective vision for the evolution of the program that now supports flood mitigation and the trail construction grants. And above all, as was mentioned, the residents of Morris County should be acknowledged because of their original vote in the 1992 referendum that helped preserve the character of Morris County by preserving open space for passive and active recreational use, ensuring that local historic sites survive for decades to come, investing in the revitalized economic driver of productive farms, and providing support for the county parks. I have the honor today, as Larry mentioned, of wearing two hats, as a Morris County Park Commissioner and the other as the chair of the Morris County Trail Construction Grant Program. I also want to recognize Nita Galante, is one of my partners on the Trail Construction Program, where we have been fortunate to see the number of grants and the creativity of the programs really improve year to year. Jefferson is known for its municipal recreation areas such as Bicentennial Veterans Memorial Park, Camp Jefferson, Longwood Lake Park. There's also over 3,800 acres of county parkland representing Berkshire Valley Golf Course, Minisink Reservation, Mayland Dickinson Reservation, which was once the home of the Snowball ski area, and the continued extension of the West Morris Greenway. And that's not even covering what Lake Hopatcong needs to the community. How do we visit most of these sites? Trails are a big part of it. While trails were planned and developed in Jefferson Township before the referendum in 2014 approving the Morris Trail Construction Grant Program, there were major regional trail connections still being developed, such as the Lake Hopatcong Trail in cooperation with other communities around the lake, as well as 5 miles of the 100-mile Highland Trail that goes from Cornwall, New York on the Hudson to Rigersville, Pennsylvania on the Delaware. But we're here today to not only acknowledge Jefferson Township's commitment to open space, but to recognize the first Morris County Trail Construction Program connecting the Morris County mainland to an island by way of the boardwalk. This is the largest project that was funded and has come to fruition within the duration of the committee. It's also interesting because it restores the historic connection where the mainland of Morris County was connected to Liffy Island prior to the establishment of the building of the Morris Canal. So people once again can go out and visit Liffy Island because of the creativity of what's been considered here. So on behalf of the 9-member Morris County Trail Commission Grant Advisory Program, we definitely have to shorten that name, but or an acronym, right? I want to congratulate you on making your preservation parkland more accessible to the public for recreation and environmental education. So on behalf of the Morris County Park Commission, Mayor, we look forward to you and the council members and Jefferson Township residents on working together on continued trail work. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And I'm just going to do a little homework here. Forgive me for a second. The new podium, it's like magic. You can put things in there and you don't know what you'll find. You know, a couple of birds. There we go, Mike Holder. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time on the 25th anniversary, I believe the Freeholder Board has something they would like to present this morning to conclude the event. I would ask Freeholder Cabana to come up, and I would ask Deputy Director says Freeholder Shaw, if you could please come up here for a second, and then I would also ask Jim Leach to please come up here. And I will take this.
Jim,
We got a little
and Steve's going to join me. Freeholder Mastrangelo sends his regrets. He was going to do this presentation, but he had to be in Somerville at 11 o'clock, and he left 10 minutes ago. So I am just waiting for the call when he gets pulled over on 287 by a state trooper. Yeah, no, he's gonna be. Tom has a tendency to do that sometimes. All right, and I just want to say I've known Jim for many, many years. He's been a force in Jefferson Township for some 60 years. He's moved here in 1959, starting with the police department in 1967, and worked his way up to deputy chief. Russ Felter, no?
Chief.
Larry, all right.
And I wasn't the deputy freeholder director.
No.
Deputy Director Cabana wanted him demoted.
All right, hey, this would have been more fun if Tom was doing it, right?
My pension.
But Russ Felter had the foresight to make Jim the township administrator in 1999, a position he's held for 20 years. He did an interview with a local paper, and when asked about the three most important issues for his residents, he simply said, the roads must be passable, the garbage has to be picked up, and the water must be drinkable. He truly understood the job of local government. Jim also spoke of the love of his community, of being here, raised in Jefferson and raising his children here. And through his efforts to preserve so many of the great open spaces in this township, he has made sure that the future, and the future for his family and so many others, has been secured in the quality of life. So on behalf of the Freeholder Board, Jim, I'd like to present you this resolution that Steve has right now, and thank you for all your efforts for here in Jefferson Township and for the people of Morris County. Thank you. Now it's your turn, if you could.
Thank you, Mr. Director. Thank you, Chief. Okay. As Doug Cabana said, I've lived at Lake Opakon 74 years. Eric, longer than you, but you're not as old as I am. And everybody says, where are you going to go when you retire? I said, where am I going to go? After living here all these years, I went out after dark, I'd get lost. I got to stay here. But I love it here. Raised my family here. And my job as administrator, one of my favorite things was preserving open space. And for one selfish reason, not only my love of the township, but when you get done, you have something. You can work on a budget, you can work on a contract, and it's aggravating, takes a lot, and when it's done, it's over. But with open space, it's there. One thing I learned, you never do anything by yourself. Ed Hack, our engineer, was a great help. Before him, Jim Coe. Joanne Meyer was my assistant. Carol Fett in the finance office. They all worked on these grants. On this trail, I believe this was the first grant that the Lake Opakon Foundation gave, and we worked with the foundation and Jess Kitchen Murphy on that, and our road department built it. But none of this stuff happens easy. It takes a lot of people. Bob Birmingham, he was like the godfather of open space in Jefferson. He used to pay, we got to get back every year what we pay in. It's Bob, sometimes you sometimes you want to wait a couple of years and get a bigger project. We almost had the biggest open space acquisition ever in Morris County, but then we wound up partnering with the federal government. So the way it worked, the state got a little more. But I'm just going to walk over here a little bit. I'm going to be real brief. All this land over here, Steve Shore referred to this Hunter's Glen. A lot of local people refer to it as the Baker Firestone property. That was like 4 different grants. This is where we are now. This was 3 or 4 different grants. Our smallest one is what became known as Ashley Cove, which is a great story how that happened. But it's like a half an acre, but it's key to the weed harvesting program on the lake, was why we bought that. to talk about pressure for development, when Russ became mayor, I became the administrator. There was all the approvals ready to go on the north end of this property for 47 houses and a marina. The south end of the property, this is after Liffy Island was purchased, a family named Brady owned it, who had owned all this land on northern Lake Opakon, Consumer Coal and Ice Company. And the parents had recently died. And these guys were like in their 60s at the time. It had been owned for 150 years by the family. And they were under a lot of pressure from Toll Brothers, a developer, to sell them the property. And they come up with a cluster plan to build 24 houses and marina there. So this is going to be developed. There's no doubt about it. And people are, why are we buying land, taking it off the tax rolls? Well, let me tell you, this is the only undeveloped land on Lake Opakon. And I said to Bob Birmingham earlier today, this is really a tax rateable, even though there's no taxes paid on, because so many people come here to use this, go to restaurants, gas stations. It brings people to the marinas. So I just want to thank everybody that I worked with all these years. Barbara Murray, if you ever need a taskmaster to make sure every I is dotted and T is crossed, I mean, she's great, but very helpful. But boy, she makes sure you do it right. You guys are lucky you have her. Nothing gets by her. So if you get a chance, my wife Jill is here, my son Jim. If you get a chance to go out and walk from where we are to go circle the island and come back, it's about a 3-mile walk. And our original plan was to take this trail here down to where the old road was that connected the island. You can still see the rock bed of it. And then put another trail along the water. There's 2 more trails going to come out right up the road here, about a half a mile, where we have built Eagle Scout built the project, and then put a trail around the island. So I hope, Mayor, that the town continues. When I say develop this land, develop it for the passive recreation. Our recreation program in Jefferson, it wasn't for open space. We were able to acquire part of Lakeside Field, Fireman's Field, Camp Jefferson. So we've had a great partnership and with the Green Acres, and we were able to leverage a lot of Green Acres money against county money without being too big a burden on our taxpayer. So, and if I had it all to do over again, I'd still be here in Jefferson. Thank you.
One more round for Jim Leach. Jim Leach. Thank you. Congratulations, Jim. On behalf of the Board of Freeholders, at this point, I'd like to thank you all for coming out this morning to help us celebrate this important milestone for Jefferson and for Morris County. As you drive or walk or bike around Morris County in the coming weeks, with especially this great fall weather, take a moment once in a while to just enjoy the fruits of your labor. Take a look around. So you'll see remarkable sights that would not have been here. Before you leave this morning, a couple of homework things. On the table to my right, there are some anniversary gifts. Please take one, each of you. And most important, as Jim said, please feel free to take a walk down the Jim Leach Trail, which will take you down to the new boardwalk that now crosses over to Liffy Island. It's a heated boardwalk, right? And I am told that the deputy freeholder director and deputy police chief will take you down personally. And Ed Hack, there are some vehicles that can take you more speedily down to the bridge in the island. So if you want to ride, Ed, just raise your hand somewhere and he will show you how to do it. And before we leave, just one appropriate quote. Emily Dickinson, who said, "In the name of the bee and of the butterfly and of the breeze, amen." Thank you for coming.